So, welcome to Business Rollercoaster, the place for new and established business owners talk about the ups and downs of their journey. And today we have guest Julia Piccoli, who is the director and owner of Social Genesis and also a host of Canada's All Hits B93.3. Hi, Julia.
Mhm. Hi. Good intro.
Thanks. So I want to start off with kind of having you go and give us a little bit of background on what your company does so that people have a little bit of context about what it is that you guys do.
Yeah, so we do mostly social media marketing. Basically, my goal is to take away the stress and time of business owners of marketing and then put it on myself. So it gives them that free time back. Basically, the way we got started was being in radio, it's really important that you have a social presence, not only for the radio station, but for yourself as well. So while I was growing that for myself and for the company, I realized that almost no businesses in the area that I was living, the small to medium companies, actually utilized social media. And I knew how important it was. And I knew that I enjoyed creating content, and I knew that I could be of service to them. So I just decided to start Social Genesis.
Perfect. Awesome.
Yeah.
So you're kind of talking about the start of your business anyway, and I want to continue to be back in that period of time and just talk about maybe even right before you started, how you were feeling or what made you kind of decide to take the leap. Because a lot of people have ideas every day and think like, oh, I should do that thing, but very few people actually make that commitment. So was there anything that made you make that commitment, or how were you feeling at that time?
Well, it was super nerve-wracking because obviously starting a business is insane, but I'm that kind of person that just is like, we'll see where it goes. So I just like threw myself in and was just like, all right, sounds good. Like I don't try to overthink anything. And like obviously planning is great, but like I don't really try to plan anything to like a solid core. I'm like, if I don't reach this goal in 2 hours, like I swear I'm gonna be so like, yeah, it's just not who I am. I'm pretty chill and laid back. So I just kind of threw myself in and was just like, let's go for it. Plus, I've also been raised by so many entrepreneurs. Like my family is full of workaholics. My dad owns like 3 companies. My grandpa, both of my grandpas on both sides. So I've just been surrounded by the entrepreneur atmosphere. So I think I'm kind of used to the whole workaholism. Like even growing up, there wasn't even a point in my life where I didn't have 3 jobs. I've always had like 2 or 3 or 4 jobs at one time. So I'm kind of used to working a lot. And even when I started my business, I was kind of getting bored. Not in the sense that like my job is boring, but like I just needed something else to keep me entertained because I had one job and I was like, I need something else. So yeah.
I'm with you on that too. I've definitely had multiple times in my life where I've had multiple jobs, and
Oh yeah.
I actually think it works really well sometimes because they kind of can weave into each other and give you ideas from because you're experiencing more things. So
100%. Yeah.
with you for that on that for sure. Um,
Yeah.
so talking about this kind of workaholic thing, it brings something to my mind, which is self-care. And so I
Mhm.
know that there is a tendency for entrepreneurs to kind of like work themselves to death, and
Yeah.
there needs to be, well, my personal philosophy is there should be a balance, but some people don't have that balance. So I'm curious, like, where do you see that balance in terms of working versus non-working, or self-care versus your business, or when you step away versus when you're actually involved? Do you have any sort of method or reason around that, or do you just kind of feel it out?
I just kind of feel it out, honestly. Like I try to plan my day as much as I can. Obviously, like working, oh gosh, like 3 or 4 jobs at this point too. Like it just kind of go off the seat of my pants. Usually, like my self-care, I have a really hard time relaxing just because of my nature of my being. So if I'll schedule like a massage once a month or something, or I watch like an hour, I schedule like an hour long period of time to watch YouTube videos and or Netflix. Like my life works better when I'm scheduled. So if I schedule in that time to relax, that makes me feel better about doing it, because for the longest time I thought that relaxing and just like doing my own thing, like watching an hour-long YouTube video or something like that was like so bad. I could be doing something so much better, but like really like it's making me calm and it's making me chillax. So I feel like it's okay. Yeah.
You're definitely inspiring to me. I feel like I definitely get stuck on the Netflix, like where I don't realize how many episodes I've watched. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, a long time.
Yeah.
So that's a good idea to schedule, but I don't actually know how you pull yourself away. That's some serious.
Yeah. Usually I watch it before I go to sleep. So like an hour before I go to sleep.
Yeah.
Then I start.
Have to go to sleep. That's good. So what's been the biggest surprise as you've owned your company? What's like the thing that shocked you the most?
I think all the behind the scenes stuff, because like I'm really good at like creating stuff. I'm really good at like channeling all of that, but it's the behind the scenes stuff of like taxes and like all of that stuff really scares me. So I'm really thankful and lucky to like have people like you and like other business owner friends that like kind of guide me through it, and they're just like, it's gonna be okay, like this is what I did, blah blah blah. But like, oh my gosh, that stuff scares me so much because I don't want to get in trouble with the government because of my job, you know.
That's so funny. Yeah, I think for me that was one of the first people that I hired was a accountant, because it's going to be really important. It's also something that I know that I don't really want to do. So I'm going to hire somebody to do it for me.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. If you can hire out, yeah.
Just the best. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So this question is like a little bit harder or more vulnerable. And I think it's kind of one of the reasons that I wanted to put this podcast together is talk about, you know, like the most awesome, amazing things of business, but also the parts that like people don't really talk about that much. So what is the biggest struggle that you've run into with Social Genesis so far? Is there like, maybe it's a few little things or maybe it's one big thing that's the biggest struggle so far?
I think it would, oh, did you go somewhere? I think I can't see you anymore.
No.
Okay, welcome back. I think the biggest struggle would be all the behind the scenes stuff, because that really scares me. And like, again, like I joke about it, but like I'm actually serious. Like I'm really scared of like making the government mad at me or like anything like that. I think also selling is a big thing for me. Like even when I did broadcasting school, it wasn't just like learning how to be on air. It was like production, it was selling, it was marketing, it was all of everything that would require you to work in a radio station.
Yeah.
So at one point I did sales. That was like my minor. And I was so bad at it just because like I couldn't figure out like how to talk to people and like not be like, here is your product. Like, and it's still to this day, like, yeah. And still to this day, like, I think that as soon as I approach someone to sell them, I should be like, here's a script, like, blah, 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 like, just trying to push them. And I almost had the mentality of, like, I'm trying to, like, sleaze my way in. But I know that if I'm approaching them, then they're going to need my product and service. So it's really, I shouldn't be feeling like that at all. But it's just kind of like a thing in the back of my head, you know, if that makes any sense.
No, it makes so much sense, because this is one of the things that I think that I've also struggled with in my business. There's, I think when we hear the word sales, sometimes you think of like this used car salesman. Maybe.
Yes.
We're like, I don't want to be that. Like nobody likes that guy, so I don't want to be that guy. So then for me, it's been like this very slow, and I'm still making this shift, like this very slow shift of trying to change the way that I feel about sales and have it not be so salesy and be more relationship building. But then I also don't want to be building relationships on the only premise is I'm trying to make a sale. Like that doesn't feel good either. So I don't know. There's you especially because I'm not like a marketer and I don't work in marketing. If you start talking to marketing people, they're like, oh, well, you know, you're just meant to like build this relationship and then you're meant to sell them something. And I'm like, if my intention is to sell them something, like that doesn't feel genuine to build a relationship with them. So
that is honestly a great point.
Like I've always been somebody that doesn't really sugarcoat things, and that that part of my personality, I would say, is probably not serving me well in my business because I'm very like honest and upfront with people. And so I don't have that like nice veneer on the outside of my business to that people are like, oh yeah, that shiny thing that I want to buy. I'm more like, what's going on? These are the problems of your business and I can fix them for you. But it's not this nice kind of way of saying it to somebody. So I feel you on that for sure.
Yeah, like the whole relationship building thing, like I think there's a balance. Like if you approach someone at a business and you don't just walk in there like, hi, I'm here to sell you things. Like it's just kind of like getting to know them and their business, and then like there being an underlining, I'm gonna sell to you.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the way that like you kind of mix the two.
Yeah. And I think that the way that's also easier to wrap my head around it is if I go in, I'm not trying to sell them something. I know I have things to sell, but I'm trying to figure out if like their company and me are the right fit. And if we're the right fit, then I can sell them a product. But if we're not the right fit, it's actually in my benefit not to even bring up any of the services that I provide, right? Because I don't want like a client from hell, you know? So it's
True.
back away and be like, awesome, glad to hear. And, you know, you can always keep that relationship too, because I just like people, but that's not somebody that you probably want to like have as a client, you know?
True. Very true.
Okay. So talking about dips in business, like if you have a dip in business, and at least this is my experience, so you can tell me if this experience has not been the same for you. And it's why I wanted to call this the business roller coaster, because my business has certainly been like just all over the place. And I feel like sometimes I have the most amazing like high highs, and other times I'm just, you know, falling on my couch and all honesty.
Yeah.
So my question is, when you have a dip in your business, if you have had any dips in your business, what do you do about it? And have you figured out ways to pull yourself out of those low moments?
Oh, that's a good question. I haven't really had that many dips yet. I am 100% sure they're coming. So I'm like fully prepared for it. Not really, but you know, I'm like mentally. Yeah, exactly. But like I like struggle with anxiety all the time. Like it's just been something that I've dealt with like my whole life really. So with that, I kind of could relate the two in a sense. But it's honestly just remembering that things aren't going to always stay this way because you're such a hardworking individual, or like whoever is watching is such a hardworking individual and they are here to better themselves. And, you know, you're not just going to be stuck in this rut constantly. It's kind of reminding yourself of that. I like writing in like the 5-minute journal. I have just recently bought that, and it's been a game changer because every day you write down 5 things you're grateful for, 3 things you want to accomplish that day, and then 2 affirmations. And I find the affirmations to be really, really helpful. And like I read, you're a badass at making money, just because I hate talking about money. I'm like getting better at it. Yeah. But in that book, it's like saying these like money affirmations to yourself constantly and believing it and thinking that it's already happened. And like, I think that helps. Like, I think that if you know that like better times are coming, better times will come. And if you stay in your little like, oh snap, like I suck, like you're going to stay there. Not to say that like you can't feel sad about being in a dip. Like you should be allowed to feel sad, but at the same time, don't be sad for like ever. Like be sad for like an hour and then be like, all right, we're coming. We're back.
Yeah, I think it's like feeling those feelings enough to let them go. So like absorbing them, and then because if you're not really feeling them, like are you really letting them go, or are you kind of stuffing them under a rug? But if you just feel them, then they should, you know, nothing stays the same in life. They should actually leave, and then definitely look at other things. I'm also a huge fan of affirmations. I think that times that I've had like personal coaches in my life and they've given me affirmations, I think at first I was like, okay, I guess I'll do the affirmation. And then over time I was like, this stuff is brilliant.
It kind of seems like hippy dippy, but like I like it.
It does. I think it reprograms your brain, because I think we all have this this kind of ego part in our head that talks to us, and we can either be really nice to ourselves or we can be really critical of ourselves. So if you kind of reprogram that part of your brain, then you end up with a cheerleader instead of like somebody yelling at you all the time, which I think is, that's the benefit, right? Like then you start to move forward and you make progress and there is momentum. So
yeah, love that. Yeah, 100%.
With you on that for sure.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, so if you were to completely start over in your business, I don't know why, just because of this magical world that I'm suggesting, but if you were to start over, what would you change about anything in your business, like the way that you first approached it or what you're doing now, if you were to completely start over?
Well, definitely for a while there, for like around like 5 months, I just completely dropped it. Like I started Social Genesis. I didn't know where the hell it was going. I dropped it for like 5 months and now we're back. And then I rebranded with you and then we're moving on up from here. I kind of would like, if I could change anything, I would change the day that I started it, because once again, like I threw myself in. It was just like, here you go. But like, I honestly didn't know quite as much as I do now. So I couldn't have been that person to sell what I'm selling now, if that makes any sense. Like, I wish that I waited a little bit longer and I wish I learned more. But at the same time, I don't wish that, because I think everything happens for a reason. So I think that I started my business for a reason. I think that that 5 or 6 months that I took off was for a reason. And then I think that finding you is a reason, because I've rebranded and I got this whole new light of motivation, I guess, and like a whole new vision of where I want to take this. So yes and no. That's kind of my answer.
I thought this too for like quite some time myself, and my answer is actually kind of the same. So it's interesting because I've also thought about like, I wonder if it would have been easier if I had started my business like even 3 months later, right? Like I just think, would it have been easier? Would it have not been easier? But then like the more that I think about it too, and as you're talking, it's kind of like, if you had started later, would you have gained all the skills that you had to gain by failing, right? Like there's this, if you just start, then you start learning and absorbing a lot of information. And I think that's why businesses, a lot of businesses fail in like the very first, 6 months to a year. But it's like all of that time, if you just understand that that's time that you're gaining skills that are going to help you in the future, and you can't really skip over the time either. Like that's the other thing too, is I was talking to a friend of mine that had previously owned a business, and he was like, I just want to tell you all of this stuff so you don't make the same mistakes that I make. And I was like, I don't know if it's possible. Like, even if you tell me, I don't know if I'm ready to hear those things. Like, I'm going to try to listen, but I think that there's just a period of mistakes. And because my business is so new, I think that it's just this period, and it's actually just like the entirety of owning a business. But I guess it feels like it's something that like you can't avoid, right? So like, yes, I could have started my business later, and yes, you could have started your business later, but like, would it have changed anything? I'm not quite sure,
Yeah. And even if you were to start it later, would you have already just been like, maybe I won't do it at that point? Like, that could have also been a thing too.
Yeah, because you have to just kind of jump. There has to be something to propel you to be like, I'm just going to do it. Like, I'm just in. And then once you kind of announce it to everybody, that gives you some like social pressure to be like, oh, I guess I need to just move forward with this. And I mean, that's something that I think is definitely helpful too, is to like actually announce it. Cause then you're like, okay, I'm doing it.
Go. Figure it out on the whim. 100%.
Awesome. Cool. I think that I'm getting to the end of my questions here. Let's see. Yeah. So I think I'm at the end of my questions, but is there anything that you want to talk about in terms of business, or like in terms of anything else? Just business in general. It's such a huge topic. I feel like there's so many areas to discuss.
True. I just kind of, the biggest struggle for me at this point is like knowing when to leave the structure that you have. Like for me, like I've lived in Lethbridge, Alberta for almost 3 years, and I love it here and it's great, but like my goal is to be like you. Like I want to travel and like I want to work off my laptop. Like that's like the goal. And I think that leaving the structure that you have is so difficult. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it's just kind of like throwing yourself into it at that point too. Like obviously like kind of figuring out some form of structure other than the structure that you have there, but also just kind of being like, let's just do it. Like, let's just go.
I think that for me, it's kind of the small things that I brought along with me to kind of facilitate that structure. Like it's not as structured as where you are right now, but the thing that's been really important to me personally has been like evening and morning routines. And so if I can like bookend my day with like a good consistent morning routine and a good consistent evening routine, and those stay the same even as I've moved from country to country, at least there's some consistency. And then this one's a silly one, but I actually think I was clever, like past me. I'm like, high five, good for you. I brought my pillowcase along with me. So I know that one seems really
funny, at first I'm like, what? It makes sense.
So it's like the one little thing that makes my bed in all these different locations feel more like my bed, because it's my pillowcase, and it's like this silk pillowcase that's better for like my skin and my hair, which is like,
yeah.
But it at least brings a little bit of element of home into, you know, if I'm staying in an Airbnb or if I'm renting an apartment. So I think you've definitely highlighted a very interesting topic and around structure and around businesses. And yeah.
That's kind of the point that I'm at, is just like figuring out how to get that structure in a daily form and in a money form enough for me to like create my own thing. Like that's like the point of the roller coaster that I'm on, is just like, when do I work for myself? You know what I mean?
Yeah, like completely, and kind of unattached from your other jobs and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I think that like it's been like when people look at what I'm doing and they look at my lifestyle, I think they look at it through rose-colored glasses, and I want to like it has a little bit of, so kind of like the ups and downs. Like when I'm in these really high moments, a lot of times I'll end up wanting to write. And so I'll write like posts on my social media and stuff just because I'm really excited. And so people get a lot of these high point posts. But when I'm at a low point, and I'm a crier, like I cry a lot. I'm in a low point. I'm not posting to social media because that's like not what I want to do to make myself feel better. I want to like just, you know, sit with myself and kind of be introverted. So I think it skews the perception of what traveling and working actually looks like. So the thing that has been the most interesting to me about traveling and working is you can't get rid of your problems. And by that, I mean like the internal struggles that you have like in your day-to-day life right now, they just show up in other ways. And it's really surprising because you're like, I thought that was about this specific thing, but then it'll show up in a totally different way and it's the same pattern. And you're like, oh, it's me. Like it's like my issue. So the number one thing I think I would say to other people is that like your issues follow you. And so it's really important to have some sort of like way to process through your issues and actually do like a lot of self-development over time. And self-development has always been a really important thing to me, but like even through traveling, it's become more important because I've realized you can't run away from your problems. Like they're still there, you know, like the psychology of my childhood is still like needs to be worked through and all of those things. And like, it's definitely getting better because I spent so much time like doing so many different things for it, but you can't run away from your problems is what I'll say.
I like that. I feel like so many people try to do that, even with vacations. I saw this post the other day, and it was like something along the lines of people go on a 2-week vacation or run away from their job and come back, or you could just like travel the world. But like you just said, your problems follow you. So like whether you go on a 2-week vacation or you travel the world, your problems will still be there.
Yeah, and it's funny too, because when you first go on a 2-week vacation, like that's the thing too. I think people associate traveling with those small stints of traveling.
Mm-hmm.
When I first left the States and went to Thailand, for the first, I mean, probably like a month, maybe like 3 weeks to a month, I was still in that vacation mode, and
Mm-hmm.
like nothing had followed me, and I had broken away from like all of those things. And so people associate this like vacation time with traveling, and it's actually very much the opposite. I think it's one of the most extraneous things that you can put yourself through to really understand yourself, and it's going to bring out all of the stuff that you've been hiding from yourself for a long time. So kind of past that 3 weeks, month honeymoon phase, right? Like then everything starts creeping back in, and it's more intense because you're not in a place that feels comfortable. So it's very it's emotionally overwhelming, and I think that it gets better with time. I'm not trying to like tell people not to, right? I'm just saying that like you kind of like get the stuff out to then move forward. So now it's really awesome because I feel like I'm in such a good place in terms of like I can pack super quickly. I can like just show up at a place and make it feel like this is the place I'm going to stay at for the next 3 months. And when people talk about like things that they want to change in their life, I'm always like, my life is all changed. Like it's all changed. And the other thing too that I will say is I was such a person of like anti-routine. Like I didn't want any routine in my life, and I wanted to just be this creative snowflake that did everything way, right?
Yeah.
Traveling has made me go, oh my God, I'm actually not that unstructured. I'm actually a much more structured person than like I wanted to admit to myself. So it's been a really fascinating thing to observe in myself as well, that I'm trying to add structure into my life, and I never thought that would happen.
Yeah, I just find traveling like that intrigues me so much. Like I honestly should have been like a therapist or something, because I love learning about people's psychology, and I love like delving into that stuff. And just like if I had the opportunity to like learn about myself and like learn like everything and just like real deep in there, I think I would love that.
You should do it. I mean, I shouldn't say should. I'm pretty sure you're gonna do it. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, Julie's gonna visit, or like she's gonna be in this life and stuff. So
Yeah.
I don't have any doubt that you'll end up doing it. I do think that the finances ends up being an interesting thing. So I don't know what the cost of living is like where you are in Canada necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, Seattle actually had like a really, really high cost of living. So traveling, weirdly enough, actually reduced my expenses. But
Really?
the problem is when I started traveling, I had a full-time remote job, which was like, it's so funny too. There's always ups and downs to things, right? Like I felt so financially secure, and I had so much money for Thailand. Like I was getting multiple massages a day, and like it was amazing. But then I was feeling this like intense guilt of feeling like I wasn't working enough. So there was this weird thing happening in my psychology. Although I was still working about the same amount of when I was in Seattle, I was feeling guilt because I was having all these other things that I could purchase that I'd never been able to purchase for with my Seattle salary in Seattle. So it felt like I needed to like work harder in Thailand for some reason. So that to me, that's kind of one of the reasons I ended up quitting my job too, because I was just feeling so guilty. Even though logically I understood that I shouldn't be feeling guilty. So there was like that awesome time of lots of money. And then like starting a business is not profitable when you start, right? Like it's just not. There's such a learning curve, and like you don't have any clients yet, and so there's no people to tell other people about what you do, and it's just such a dip in finances. But at least understanding that has been helpful to me, because then like as I'm seeing my bank account go like this, I'm like, it's fine. It's just what happens when you start a business. So to me, it's like it's not about the traveling that is a decrease in my finances. It's about starting a business that is the decrease in finances. So I think you're actually, I think you're being smart the way that you're doing it, where like as you're kind of going through this learning and starting a business, you have other sources of income. And then once this kind of picks up, then you'll be able to flip over to the travel side, no problem.
Thanks. I'm glad.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's a really good, thing to talk about, because I think a lot of people are curious about that too. So yeah, I don't have any other like topics or questions if you do, but thank you
No, I'm good.
for being a guest on this very informal show.
Thanks.
Thanks, Julia, for being on the show. I really enjoyed having you on here. I always have so much fun with you. And for anybody else that's interested in what Julia does, her company, once again, is Social Genesis, and she helps businesses with their social media and marketing. So that's the show that we have for you today, and tune in for next episode.